Welcome, welcome, welcome back with David Clayton. If you didn't see the video before, this is David. He's got his own channel, Guitar Breakdown. It's also a site, guitarbreakdown.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not only is he a great teacher, but he has some insanely ripping blues fusion cats like Josh Smith and Alan Hines on his channel too, where you've done instructional DVDs, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one.
You do. You have the Josh one.
And it dizzies me every time I see it. I'm like, God, he's so good. It's ridiculous.
Scary.
But, you know, they're just great. I mean, I sometimes just watch the stuff for entertainment because they're so good. It's like inspirational to see a player they're so different than what I would normally do. But even just watching it, even if you don't pick up the licks note for note, it inspires you to play differently.
Oh, sure, dude. I mean, they have so much to give as
Yeah.
far as, and they don't even think about it.
Right.
They just play, and you're like,
But that's
really?
what you're for. You break it down nice and slow and
That's what you're there for.
digestible, and it's
Yeah.
adults. That stuff's like, once it gets all that chromatic-y stuff, my guitar just out the
but
window.
like I've said before, it's just notes.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
so really, when you slow it down,
Concepts.
no matter how hard it seems,
Yeah.
don't ever be intimidated
Yeah.
or, you know,
Yeah.
it's just notes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, let's break down some more of the horn kind of stuff. Like what we did. We recorded this beautiful lesson, and I forgot to have my camera audio on, so it just.
It was the greatest playing.
I've never seen anybody play so good. But anyway, so what we did was, and what we'll do again, is we kind of related how we could use chromatics, but like, you know, in a position that we might understand, like position one, let's say, if we're kind of new on the mixing, you know, major and minor together, and then adding those cool chromatic concepts that you were talking about. But how a horn guy would do it, because they have that endless legato thing that they can do, but you can kind of simulate that through, you know, playing legato on guitar, but using those chromatic runs in ways that you might sound like if you broke it down slow, like, well, that sounds rude, but when you flurry through it,
Right.
it sounds really cool.
Yeah, and it's those flurries, I think, that are the biggest. You know, so many guys, like you listen to the Scott Hendersons and all those guys, and they take a lot of their lines. They'll even say, you know, I learned a ton from Coltrane, Michael Brecker, you know, all these horn players. And I think the biggest part of that is it's a completely different instrument. You have to play it differently. And there's certain things on saxophone that are so easy to play on guitar, like fourth intervals. We talked about that. You know, fourth intervals on guitar, you either have to stretch really far or you're playing one note on a string.
Yeah, which jumping around, too, is...
Yeah.
Unless you got the hybrid thing down, is really tough.
Or if you have the giant hands like Holdsworth or something like that. But the thing is, on horn, it's so much easier. And same thing with the phrasing. The way we go about it, I mean, we can just get locked into a mode where we're playing a million notes and we never stop.
Yeah.
Saxophone players have to stop.
Yep.
And a lot of times they do little short bursts, so their phrasing is, you know, it's got this staccato-ness to it, and it just sounds so cool.
Yeah.
So,
an example.
One of my favorite guys is Michael Brecker.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys thought he was one of the best. A lot of things, again, fourth interval. So in this one thing, he did in fact, I'm going to do a lesson on this. It's a confirmation. He did the standard confirmation.
Okay.
And he did this cool little, he took the melody and he tweaked it a little bit, and then he did this cool little solo. And in the solo, he does this one line that's just cool. This is one of the many. And that's just the very beginning of it.
So that was D minor pentatonic, right?
That's D minor pentatonic. And what he's doing is he's just, again, those fourth intervals on the guitar. It ends up being a third, two at the very G and B string. But you're just playing the 10th fret on the D string, G string, and B string. But you're kind of getting, and using hybrid picking. And you kind of mute it after you lift it up.
Yeah.
You get this beautiful little phrase of 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7,
Look
7.
at you.
Look at I played a lot of today.
Exactly.
So you get this great.
Yeah.
Now you could just take that little lick as a lick and use that in A minor pentatonic.
Yep.
You know, and not that note though.
That's the special note.
Right. I'm not going to teach that. And then, but then after that, what's cool is he does chromatic stuff.
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Now I was asking you about you know, because I'm not a real theory buff, like the technique behind it. But when you start breaking it down to how that relates to actually like what the chord shape is and where he starts resolving to, then it kind of all starts to make sense.
Oh, absolutely. And that, again, is just, if you just take, say, A minor pentatonic, where everybody's familiar with that. We're just taking notes out of that A minor pentatonic. Instead of playing the 7th fret on each string, and then the 8th fret on that string, we're just playing
Yeah.
That whole run.
And breaking into that the next run
Then
that you're gonna
right.
do.
And then there, he's just sliding again pentatonics.
Right.
He slides into that A note.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when he does it in D, he does. But you have that A note. That's all it's doing.
Yep.
But it's that flurry of it
Yep.
that sounds great. So you have it up here.
Right.
A little nice vibrato on there. Then you have
Yeah, and this is what I was
Right.
what I was talking about, to where if you it wouldn't really make sense until you notice the notes that he's resolving to.
right, because it's just notes that are it's in but it's out, and it's just a bunch of chromatic notes. So you basically have, if you're thinking D minor pentatonic, he starts on that note, which is the fifth of pentatonic.
Yeah.
Right? But he's starting it up here on the G string. And then he just does 4 notes.
Which brings you down to the third of the
Yep.
D chord.
The major third. So you have, then instead of going chromatically again, which ends up being just a shape and a pattern,
Right.
he actually eliminates a note. So now it gets a scale tone.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little scale shape instead
Yep.
of just note after
Yep.
note. So you have. I'm sorry, I just threw it in there.
Right.
Right. So that's, and here you have that whole step. So you have half steps, whole step to get there,
Right.
another whole step, and a half step. So that breaks up instead of half step.
Right.
Half step,
Yeah.
So now you have. Then you get into a nice little arpeggio to break it up
Right.
even further. So you have notes right next to each other. Then some separation with a whole step and a whole step. Then you have some arpeggio.
Which is kind of diminished sounding,
Yep,
right?
totally.
Now this all works because they're basically in a song like this. They could be vamping over one, right? Which is a concept I think when people hear this kind of stuff, they don't necessarily realize that sometimes it's a vamp, and when a chord's a vamp without major chord tones, you can go
You can go anywhere you
all
want.
over the place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As long as you resolve tastefully.
Sure.
And a lot of the funny thing, I always remember one of my teachers telling me that, I don't know if he was into psychology or any of that kind of stuff, but he said that the brain really can only hold up to 8 or 9 notes. Like that's when you start losing interest.
Yeah.
So if you do chromaticism or you do anything and you do it for more than 8 or 9 notes,
Yeah.
you better come back to some kind of home base resolve,
Sure.
or people are just going to be like, that's cool. Okay, well,
Yeah.
where are you now? I don't even know what you're
My
doing.
head's spinning.
Exactly. And then the other cool part about this is that it goes so fast.
Yeah.
That it almost doesn't matter what you play.
Yeah.
You just resolve on that note.
Now is that a swung?
Yep. And it's
Yeah.
that horn thing, that
Yeah.
real staccato stop.
Yeah.
You know? It's fun stuff, man.
It is fun if you're a horn player. It's frustrating. It's like, I remember really liking the phrasing of mandolins and stuff like that. But then you go to try to learn their riffs, and it's the same thing. The intervals on the strings are different. So it's like these impossibly beautiful runs on guitar. I mean, you can do it, but
I think also that's the coolest part too about experimenting with other instruments and stuff, because you'll come up with an idea that you would have never came up
thought
with.
of.
There's no way.
So, moral of the story is maybe you can use those kind of runs, right?
Yep.
Because you're just doing that sort of thing anyways, and you can. And use that almost that same kind of concept where you're going down 4 notes, maybe landing on the major third, but just even just incorporating something like that into your playing is the first step, right?
Sure.
And so you're just like what you broke down in your other lesson. It's just these little pieces that you're starting
But
to chain
always
together.
go back to the scales that you know, or
Yeah.
the arpeggios that you know. Like here's a little, A minor arpeggio.
Yeah.
Well, just take those top 4 notes, because this is the shape. Well, just your fingers feel comfortable there. Just fill it in with.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Back to pentatonic.
Yeah, exactly. And there you have it.
Filling in holes.
Horny guitar playing. Awesome. All right, so don't forget to check out his stuff. It's really awesome. Like I said, your products, because he's a great filming and editing, and you film all these really cool products too. So, and wait, there's more. He also is incredible at making tabs for stuff too.
Oh,
He did
right.
my last DVD, my
Your
Hendrix
Hendrix
stuff,
one, which was awesome.
well, I mean, even more awesome now that your tabs looking so
Right.
good, because the tabs before are really shady, and
Yeah.
you did like this incredible job tabbing stuff. So check out his site too, because he's got a lot of really cool stuff transcribed. That if you don't do that sort of thing, there's so much work that goes into figuring it out, and then sitting down and like I couldn't musically notate something to save my life, but you do a really good job on, if a person can read, really it's broken down really
It's
well.
just nice to see numbers of tab and see those rhythms,
Yeah.
see those elements. Even if you don't understand them, you
Yeah.
can see a group of a bunch of notes
Yeah.
and one note. You know the one note's holding for,
right,
at least.
longer than the group.
Right, right.
Right. No, that makes it, and it's just like I can't recommend it enough. So if you want to get into, especially introducing horn types of phrasing into your stuff, you've broken down a lot of that.
Sure,
stuff. Yeah.
Michael Brecker. And the thing is, it's as daunting or challenging as it may seem,
Yeah.
what we try and do most of the time, and we do too. I mean,
Mhm.
you try and make it so accessible that
Yeah.
it's not hard. It's just a matter of practicing a little bit and understanding what's going on. And anybody can play this stuff. Maybe not at terrifying tempos.
Yeah.
I can't do half this. Some of the Brecker stuff I
Yeah.
transcribed,
No way.
never get. No, because it's so
But it
fast.
sounds cool slow too.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so check it out. Guitar Breakdown. Again, David Clayton. Thank you for
sir,
coming.
so much for having me.
All right.